this video we're going to have a little look at performing transformations to graphs. So there's a couple of things you need to know to start off with. If the value is on the outside of the bracket, that means that the transformation is going to be in the y direction. And if the value is on the inside of the bracket, it tells you that the transformation is in the x direction. Now, if it's in the y direction, it's nice and straightforward. It does what you expect. However, if it's in the x direction, it's a little bit more complicated, as it does the opposite of what you expect. So, we'll just have a look more closely then at the graph we're being asked to sketch. So, on the axis currently, we've got the graph of y equals f of x, and we need to draw y equals f in brackets x minus 1. So, the first thing we need to look at is that the value is on the inside of the brackets, so therefore the transformation is in the x direction, so we're going to be adjusting all of the x coordinates, and it does the opposite of what you expect. So instead of taking away 1 from each of those, we're going to be adding 1 to them. Now the key thing then is to look at the points that are nicely placed on the graph. So for example, that goes right through the corner, and it says specific coordinate -1, 3, so we can actually move that fairly easily. Now we said, when it's in the x direction, it does the opposite. So instead of taking away 1 from that, I'm going to add 1 to the x coordinate. So currently the x coordinate is -1. When I add 1 to that, the x coordinate will become 0. Now the y value, the y coordinate, that's going to stay the same. So we've plotted our first point. We can then look at another key point. So here we have our next one. The x coordinate here is 0. We're going to do the opposite, so we're not going to take away 1, we're going to plus 1. So the x coordinate will then be at 1. The next point on our graph, the x coordinate is 1. So we're going to do the opposite of taking away 1. We're going to plus 1. So the x coordinate will then be at 2. Here, the x coordinate is at 2. We're not taking away 1. We're going to add 1. So the x coordinate will then be at 3. And our final point that we need to do is this one here. The x coordinate there is 3. We're not going to take away 1, we're going to plus 1, so the x coordinate will then be at 4. Once we've got all of our key points drawn, it's then just a case of joining those up the best you can. And we've got our graph. So we'll have a look at a couple more. I've written down the key points there for you, so again, if it's on the outside of the brackets, the y direction does what you expect. If it's on the inside of the brackets, it's the x direction, so it does the opposite of what you expect. So, having a look at the graph we're being asked to draw, on the axis is y equals cos x, and we need to draw the graph of y equals 3 cos x. Now, there isn't any brackets necessarily on this question, but where they should be is here, so it should be like that. And therefore, the value is on the outside of the brackets, so the transformation is going to be in the y direction. Okay, so we know our transformation is going to be in the y direction, and that means that it does what you expect. So we're having 3 lots of cos x there, so that means we're going to be timesing all those values by 3. So we need to pick our key points again. So our first one is here, and currently that coordinate is at 1. I need to times that by 3, so it will go to 3. The x values, the x coordinate is not going to change. Our next key point here, the y value is 0, so when I times 0 by 3, I still get 0, so that coordinate's actually not going to change. My next one, the y coordinate is -1, so I need to times that by 3, so that will end up at -3. Next one, again, this is at 0. When I times that by 3, it's going to remain at 0. 0 times 3 is 0. Next one, our y value is at 1. I need to times that by 3, so it will end up at 3. Again, we have 0, so we now know that that's going to stay the same. And finally, we have -1. And when we times that by 3, that'll give us -3. And again, just a case now of joining up those coordinates nice and easily through. I'm sure you'll do it better than me. Final one then, just last example. Key concepts around the outside there. On the graph paper we have got y equals cos x, and we are being asked to find the value of y equals cos of 2x in brackets there. So notice the value is on the inside of the brackets, so therefore it is going to be on the x direction. So it does the opposite of what you would expect. So where we're expecting the x values to double, they're actually going to halve. So we have our first key point on the x here, and the x value there is 0 because the coordinates of that point would be 0, 1, and I need to halve that, so that's just going to remain at 0. Then my next x coordinate is here at 90. When I halve that, that's going to end up at 45, which is just in the middle here of this 30 and 60. My next one down here, the x coordinate is actually 180, so I need to halve that, which will mean that my x coordinate will then be at 90. Here, my x coordinate is at 270, so I need to halve that, and I will get an x coordinate of 135. And lastly, my x coordinate is at 360, so when I halve that, that's going to give me 180. And now again, just a case of joining those points up.